Previously, we have talked about what globalization is. We were able to define globalization. We have understood that globalization is not just an economic phenomenon, but it also encompasses social and cultural phenomena. Now, this time, let's try to look at trade because we all know that when we talk about globalization in the contemporary world, the center of it is the economic or the trading system. This time, we will be looking into the benefits and disadvantages of trade. We could observe that since then, when we look at history, the kind of trading this at present is too far from the kind of trading that we had before. So here, let's look at the benefits of trade first before going on to the disadvantages of trade. So here we lined up some benefits of trade, and first off is the increased choice. Next to it is the greater potential for growth. Then increase international economies of scale and greater employment opportunities. With these lined up benefits of trade, we could observe that there are keywords emerging or dominating from the benefits. We have the word increase and the word greater. So see, um, here in the first place, let's look at the increased choice. Because of trading, people now have increased choices of commodities. Even it could might be product, um, i- uh, access to product or services. So trading now could not only be done through our physical markets in the palenque or in the grocery stores in malls. This time, we also have trading online. So, because of trading, the kind of system that we are now adopting has emerged and has actually changed because, as we all know, change is dynamic, it is growing. Sometimes it depletes, but most of the time it expands. So, increased choices like um, if before we do trading through our markets, our palenque, or through malls, through grocery stores, department stores, and what kind of shops and stores that we have at present. This time, we have, because of technology, we have this online stores, online shopping. So we have actually um, our experts who are able to develop applications that we could use in our desktop and our cell phones where we could access available and expanded choices of commodities. It could either be products or services. That's one benefit of trade that we could look into. Another is the greater potential for growth. So if you are, for example, a business-minded person, or if you have your own business, or if you want to put up a business, trading this time has provided us greater potential for us, for example, business persons, to make their business growing or expanding. So it's another potential to trade, potential to exchange resources, to showcase your products or even services to many people. So there is that greater potential of growth. You, this is on the part, mostly on the part of the providers of products, the providers of services. Now here, we also have this increased international economies of scale. So if before we are limited with our own resources, with our own context, with our own places. We only trade with our neighbors. We exchange goods and services with our fellow citizens inside the Philippines. But due to trading, the emergence of, for example, the importation and exportation of products. Then aside from that, we also have new ways of providing services in the international scale. So here, um, aside from just exporting and importing products in and outside the country, vice versa, we also have virtual and online ways of increasing our international connection, our international exchanges of goods and services to the international economy of scale. And lastly, because of the increase of choice, greater potential for growth, and we have this increasing international interaction as to trading, we also develop more opportunities for employment. We have a lot of job vacancies because of the increase of trade, the benefits that the trade is giving us. So people could actually work physically. They have to go there in the physical workplace, or at present, especially with the pandemic, um, people would also have their options to search for jobs in the comforts of their homes. So there are a lot of employment opportunities actually available to the people because of the trade and also the expansion of the choices, the growth of businesses, and the opening of international pathways and international connections. Now, moving on to the disadvantages of trade. Just a while ago, we have learned the advantages and the benefits that the trade could provide us, not just with the consumers, but also with the producers and anyone in the world. This time, let's look at the disadvantages of trade. Here, these are just among the disadvantages that trade could give us. Number one, we'll have increase in gap between the rich and the poor, followed by the dominance of global trade by the rich northern hemisphere countries. And third, lack of opportunities for the poor to be able to have access to markets. And lastly, exploitation of workers and growers. Now, let's have first the first one on the list, the increase in gap between the rich and the poor. This time, because of trading, we have understood a while ago that because of trading, there is that increase of choice and a greater potential for growth. However, it becomes also a disadvantages to the poor people or even the poor countries and even those who could not actually access or could not afford to buy and to buy for these kind of products available. So first thing, because of the increase of choice and the greater potential for growth, there is also that increase in the gap between the rich and the poor. We already have this. We could develop criteria as to um, uh, what the poor. We could classify poor based the rich and the poor based on the kind of brands that they are consuming or they are buying. So, for example, we might say that rich people would tend to buy more iPhone and Apple products aside from the poor people because they may just they may just buy those goods or products that are according to their income. So there is already that increasing gap between the rich and the poor. We look at as to what kind of brands and products they are buying as compared to each other, and also the expenses and the amount of the value of the product that they are consuming or they are patronizing. Now, here, another disadvantage is the dominance of global trade by the rich, especially those in the northern hemisphere countries. So this might be something that we have to look into because we have seen that there is also an increase in the international economies of scale. However, what is currently dominating in the global market are those rich countries, especially those in the northern hemisphere part of the world. So that is something that we have to see to it that there is also the strike of balance between those in the northern and the southern hemispheres. Now, here, another also disadvantage of trade is the lack of opportunities for the poor to be able to have access to markets. So this is very um, connected to the first disadvantage into the increase in gap between the rich and the poor. So Why? What's the reason here in the lack of opportunities for the poor to be able to have access to markets? Because, for example, rich people could um, just have they could use their own credit cards or their um, bank accounts. They could pay online in just a click of their thumb or finger. They would be able to buy commodities, especially with the challenges of the pandemic. Now, let's look at the poor's side, right? Those who are challenged with financial resources. Here, because they don't have mostly majority do not have the enough and sufficient uh, access to their credit cards. They don't have credit cards, actually. They don't have their own bank accounts. So they could not transact online. What they need to do is to go to the market, go to the physical market, physical shops, physical stores in order for them to access goods and commodities, goods and services. So there is actually that decreasing opportunities for the poor to be able to have access to markets as compared to the rich ones. Another is the exploitation of workers and growers. As we all know, that although there is that increase in employment opportunities, job vacancies because of trading, the growing and expansion of trading, there is also that danger of exploitation of workers and growers. One of the issues of exploitation among workers is um, overworked and exhausted workers. Their employers tend to um, deprive them of the right to proper compensation. They may have stayed, they may have worked overtime, but then they are underpaid. That's one issue. That's one issue of exploitation. Also, another issue of exploitation is on the youth or minor children being able or who were subjected to works, minor works. So we have children exploited to do some trading. We have children or minor children exploited to work and being employed. And in unfortunate cases, our children now are on the roads. They try to sell something, so on and so forth. So how far do you think does trade help children, like these children that we have in this picture depicted here in the slide? So, trading would sometimes, and even in some cases, would provide disadvantage to our children, to the young ones, because there are those exploited workers who are commonly minors, and also especially with women women as women children or even women adults are also prone to exploitation in illegal recruitment and so on and so forth. So despite the benefits that trade has was able to provide us, that trade was able to give us, there are also disadvantages. But hopefully with the passing of time, with the expansion of trade and business and the economy of scale in the international arena, let's just hope that these advantages would be slowly or gradually be, decreasing, or let's try to prevent these disadvantages of trade.